I'm joined by Lowell Ullrich, longtime football reporter for the province, to talk about Saturday's season opener between the BC Lions and the Edmonton Eskimos at BC Place. Now, LU, Saturday happens to still be June, not July, and you have some strong feelings about the CFL starting its season in June, don't you?
Well, you know, it's interesting that the season starts on Thursday night, as it did in Winnipeg, between the Bombers and Argos. It just seemed to me that, you know, if you're going to call it Canadian Football League and really be prideful of the fact that, you know, you have 9 teams in the league now, that, you know, maybe start the season on Canada Day. That's, I think that it's been done before, so you wonder why they wouldn't try it again.
Well, I mean, obviously, you know, the weekend closest to Canada Day is obviously something that made sense to the league and to TSN, but let me talk to you about a sort of a unique proposal that was made to me yesterday by our colleague Paul Chapman. Paul suggested, LU, that not only should you start the season on Canada Day, but you should actually do a football day in Canada, much like the NHL and CBC do Hockey Day in Canada. So what you would do is you would start the season with games at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m., 4 p.m., and 7 p.m. 2 games in the West, 2 games in the East. Games take 3 hours. Ostensibly, this should work out beautifully and be a celebration of both Canada and this unique sport. What do you think of it?
Well, I think it's got some merit. I like the idea in principle for the reasons that we just outlined a minute ago. You wonder whether or not the broadcast rights holder, despite the fact they've got millions of dollars and resources, really would have the resources to carry off 4 games in a day. I mean, they struggle to get 3 crews to cover 4 games in a weekend, so doing them all on one day, that might be interesting. But you know what? Like I say, it's been done before. They've had at least 1 game on a Canada, if not 2, if memory serves. And I don't see any reason why you can't do it. The reason why they say they can't do it, Jonathan, is because there's just too few number of days between July 1st and November 30th when the Grey Cup in Vancouver is scheduled.
Yeah, and I suppose, you know, also when you think about it, it seems like a nice idea to have a bunch of games on Tuesday, but then suddenly you've got to turn around and maybe have a game on Friday. Even Saturday is pushing it for that kind of time off you need when you're playing football. LU, I wanted to move on to Saturday now. The Lions open the season against the Eskimos at BC Place Saturday afternoon, 3 o'clock. And the Lions have probably more turnover this season than we've seen in recent years, both on offense and defense. So I wanted to ask you sort of conceptually, how difficult is it in a team game to incorporate a whole bunch of new guys and make it smooth? Is it quite possible that Saturday's opener could be a rather sloppy game?
Well, it's possible because you do have a lot of players that are, you know, as you say, trying out or in new positions. Dave Ritchie, the old Lions coach, once said that for every rookie you started, you'd have that equals 1 loss in the season. And if that were the case, the Lions might be out of the playoffs already because they've got so many guys that are new faces. But as for a first game, you know what? There is the potential for it to be a bit sloppy, but you know, at least from an offensive point of view, where there's a little bit more execution that is necessary, the Lions have looked pretty good, and you know they've had a pretty good week of practice and a pretty good training camp under their new offensive coordinator, Harry Jones.
Okay, LU. So if you're going to the game on Saturday afternoon or you're watching it on TV, you know, who do you see as a player to watch on offense, whether it's a new guy or someone who's returning?
Well, I'm with the Lions. I mean, you can't go wrong with Stefan Logan. I mean, anybody who watched him play during the latter part of last season will be reminded of just how much of an impact he can make to a game and how he, by having to deal with him, you know, frees up other players such as Andrew Harris and some of the receivers.
And what about on the defense? Who should we be watching for?
Well, as always, you know, and I'm going to mention his name only for the simple fact that we haven't done much on him during the course of the preseason, and you know, maybe that there's a few guys that maybe on this defense you tend to take for granted. But Adam Bighill, of course, is you know, had an all-star season last year, a monster season, and I think if the Lions get any sort of added defensive push, that's going to make him that much more of an effective player. For the Eskimos, yeah, hard to tell there. J.C. Sherritt, who's kind of, you know, the Eskimos version of Bighill, apparently not at practice all week, may not play, so that's going to be an interesting dynamic because the Eskimos are have been a pretty good run-stopping group over the year. But my money's always going to be on Adam Bighill. He's certainly one of the best players in this league.
LU, I wanted to move ahead a few weeks. Late July, the BC Lions are going to they're going to celebrate the career of Geroy Simon, arguably the greatest CFL receiver in history. Now, of course, a year ago, the Lions traded Geroy to the Saskatchewan Roughriders amid much controversy and tension between Geroy and his side and the Lions. A year later, the Riders offered him back to the Lions. It didn't happen. He's retired. He's scouting for the Riders. So were you surprised to see this come together this quickly? How might it have happened? And I guess my follow-up there, LU, is will we see Geroy at some point return to the Lions fold, since I'm assuming he probably has stronger ties in the Vancouver area than he does in Saskatchewan?
Well, certainly, last question first. Because he does still live on the Lower Mainland, you'd like to think that there'll be some means in which he could, have his expertise brought to the BC Lions, but not now. I mean, the Lions weren't prepared to pay him. The Saskatchewan Roughriders, who made an $11 million profit last year, had plenty of money left over from the Grey Cup. They were, so they stepped up and are writing a check for his services, as it were. Both the Lions and Geroy are pretty smart. Dennis Skulski, Wally Buono, they know what to say. So does Geroy too. If you really wanted to sit down and press Geroy, and I think there's a bit of resentment, but they did step up the Lions, and they did it quickly, and I think they did it in reaction to a fan base which said, why is this happening? And hopefully, some of this is explained as to why this is happening, but in view of the fact that he's going to work for the Riders this year anyways, the Lions, I thought, did the right thing by quickly reaching out and saying, look, if you're not playing, we want to recognize the fact you had 12 fantastic years in BC and you became the league's all-time yardage leader. So they're doing the right thing. Will it mean that they'll continue to do the right thing? Will this end as if they all lived happily ever after and Geroy someday walks out in a Lions shirt? I don't know. I think that's still possible, though.
LU, I know it's been a crazy week, folks. I invite you to check out provincesports.com. Tons of coverage from LU. Tomorrow, in particular, our regular Blitz package that opens the season. We're talking like a dozen pages in Province Sports and at provincesports.com. Plus, tomorrow afternoon, Friday afternoon, we are going to have a live chat, your regular pre-game live chat at provincesports.com. So we encourage our readers to interact with you, LU, at provincesports.com. Thanks very much for joining me. Looking forward to seeing how everything goes down Saturday afternoon.
My pleasure.